So my name is Pontus Westerberg. I'm from UN Habitat, the United Nations Human Settlements Program, and I'm the coordinator of the Block by Block program, in which we use Minecraft to connect communities with public space and other urban planning projects. First of all, really quickly, UN Habitat is the United Nations program that deals with sustainable towns and cities. We basically do sustainable urbanization. We promote a holistic view of cities across the world. And we work in about 70 different countries, mainly in the global south, in the developing world. And our headquarters, where I also work, is in Nairobi, Kenya. We're quite a small UN agency. You might have heard of some other ones like UNDP or UNICEF. They're much bigger. But we have a really, really important mandate, which is urbanization. This slide here, it's a little bit complex to look at maybe, but if you look on the right-hand side, you basically have, since 1950, the percentage of population in different regions that lived in towns and cities. On the left-hand side, you've got the absolute numbers. What's really interesting when you look at this is that if you compare the more developed region with the less developed region, it's pretty obvious that you basically can't develop without urbanizing. When people get a little bit of urbanization, one road that leads from the village to the town, people take that road to get education. It's in cities that you basically access culture, music, it's where you form political parties, it's where businesses are formed, and so on. And so over the next few years, looking forward, the two remaining regions that are yet to urbanize, Africa and Asia, are moving in that general direction. But while urbanization is a really positive force for development, it also has a lot of problems. Environmental problems, slum formation, and so on. Without urbanization being planned, cities end up having lots of problems. So we promote three values when it comes to urbanization. The first one is that all countries need to have a national urban plan. This is really actually rare. There's a big disjoint between what happens on a national level in most countries and what happens on a local level in cities, in local authorities and in mayor's offices and so on. I think there's only a handful of countries in the world that actually have an urban plan. Sweden being one, Ethiopia being another, really important. The second thing is going back to basics in urban planning. You know that fantastic grid layouts that a lot of American cities have, like New York, for example, right here? That's a positive way of building new cities. And public space is fundamental when it comes to these well laid out cities. Just some stats, like Nairobi, where I work, for example, only about 10% of the total area of the city is public space, whereas New York has 40 to 50%, so it's a big, big difference. And without public space, cities don't function properly. I'll come back to that in a minute. And the third thing that we focus on is about increasing density. Urban sprawl creates loads of social problems and environmental problems. People have to drive to get to work. People have to drive to the shopping mall to do their shopping and so on. So these are the three fundamentals. When it comes to public space, we like to look at cities holistically. And public space is a really good entry point into a holistic view of the city because it really touches on all the different elements. It promotes social inclusion and diversity. People are able to come to the city, use it, walk on the streets, sit in parks, and so on. It's fundamental for safety. Without people on the streets, cities become really unsafe. It's really also important for democracy and good governance. As we've seen in the Middle East, for example, in the last years, in Egypt, it's in public spaces that people protest. It's where they form political parties, and so on. It's good for health and well-being. With wide streets, a lot of pavements, parks, people are able to walk, cycle, run in the city. And that also then impacts on the environment of the city. Less cars, more non-motorized traffic, like cycling, for example. And finally, public space is important for businesses. Markets are held in public spaces. Cafes are able to put tables and chairs outside and so on. So it really has a holistic, it really touches on all the elements of the city, public space. And when I say public space, we don't only mean the more traditional things like squares and parks, but streets is fundamental. Without a good street layout, you can't have good water and sanitation because there's simply no space to put the water pipes. I'll show some slides later of slums, for example, where this makes it really, really difficult. So we have at UN Habitat started a global public space program. We aim to improve or create 300 public spaces, mainly in developing countries, by the end of 2016. And you can see here a map of the spread. We're in Asia, Africa, and Latin America. And there are 4 green ones, which is where we've started using Minecraft as a way to engage citizens, and I'll get to that in a minute. When we do building projects, any building project, not just in public space, we always want to make sure that communities are involved in the project. And this is what it can often look like. This is my colleague Rasmus in Haiti, who's having a community meeting, a group of people. And this tends to be the case both in developing and developed countries, is that the majority of the people that come to the meeting and the majority of the people that speak at the meetings tend to be older. Like here, for example, there are a couple of kids, but it's very unlikely that in this setting they would have actually had an opportunity to speak. There are also, power relations at play here. My colleague is an architect. He's come from outside, and so on. So in these kind of meetings, there are power plays at play. So that's why we started thinking about Minecraft. And I'm sure, actually, that I didn't need to put this slide to this audience. But it is one of the world's most popular video games. 50 million, or more than 50 million copies have been sold worldwide. I was in Mexico last week, and I met up with the guy who has the biggest Minecraft server in Mexico, and he told me that only about 20% of the players on the server actually have the legit version of Minecraft. The rest is pirated. So that number, I'm sure, is much, much, much higher if you consider people who are. Is that right? Can you hear it? All right. Yeah, so saying, I'm sure that number is much, much higher if you take into consideration all the pirated versions. So we've got a really potentially big audience here to connect with the projects that we're doing. So about 2 years ago, slightly less, we approached Mojang, who are the makers of Minecraft, and proposed that we work together in some way. And they were immediately really excited about the possibility of working with the United Nations. And so we created this project here, block by block. So we created here this project, block by block. We signed the agreement in September 2012, so we've been working together for around a year and a half. So this is how it works. We basically start off with an actual space. This space is Plaza Tlaxcuaque in Mexico City. We get pictures, maps, drawings, everything basically that we can get our hands on. And then we work with these fantastic guys, young guys in the UK called Fire UK. They're Minecraft builders. They run a Minecraft server. And they basically produce a model for us. This is the same square, Plaza Tlaxcuaque. You see at the top is the Minecraft, at the bottom is the Minecraft model, at the top is the actual picture. I mean, it's not picture perfect, considering that you're using 1 by 1 meter cubic blocks, but it's pretty realistic, and it definitely does the job. Finally, then, in workshops, we work with people, communities, citizens, and they're able to visualize their own ideas in Minecraft. So this one here, for example, one of the big problems with this particular square in Mexico City are these two roads. Lots of fast traffic, very difficult to actually get into the square to access it. So this person here has suggested two footbridges as a way to get into the square. Also some trees and so on. Once these models have been designed, communities or people have been able to come up with their suggestions in Minecraft, they are then presented back to their professionals, if you like, architects and urban planning departments that we work in and so on, and then they're then presented into or turned into actual architectural drawings or used for building works. This picture here is from a project in Nepal in the Kathmandu Valley. So I just want to talk about two examples of places that we've been working. The first one is in Kenya, in Nairobi's largest slum, which is called Kibera. It has about 200,000 to 300,000 people living in a very small area. And as you can see, there is very, very little public space. You know, as I was saying earlier, if you wanted to actually do proper water and sanitation, it's very difficult with streets this narrow. But there is, in one area, in an area called Silanga, there is a sports field, which is one of the only proper public spaces in Kibera. And we've been working there for about a year and a half, 2 years. And we are involving different groups in the design and redesign of this public space. Like there's one group of young kids. They're about the ages of kind of 14 to 22 who look after this football field. Then there's a group of disabled older women who have a marketplace roughly from where this picture is taken. And on the other side of the football pitch, you can see those buildings. Behind them, they have some vegetable gardens. Then there is a more formal NGO, non-governmental organization, which is called the Kilimanjaro Initiatives, that looks after a lot of the safety and security around this area of Silanga. And finally, we work with Nairobi City Council, the local authority, who is the formal owner of this space. We had for quite a long time been doing it in the traditional way. We had an architect who was leading community participation workshops with the people, and she had produced two-dimensional drawings. And it became pretty apparent after a while that a lot of the people that we're working with here have very limited education, perhaps primary school to up to 11, 12 years old or something like that. And even with people with high levels of education, reading two-dimensional architectural drawings are quite difficult. But a lot of these people are finding it very difficult. So when we introduced Minecraft in these workshops here, it really was like as if a light had kind of been lifted. People, you could see and feel the atmosphere changing in the room. And one interesting thing that came out of one of these workshops was that there had been a disagreement between two parts of the community, the kids that wanted to keep the football field as big as possible, and the group of older women who wanted to have an access road that went from the top of the site down to the bottom to access the vegetable gardens. And the architect had dealt with that in a way by basically cutting off a corner of the field for the road. And it was really standoff because the football players refused to accept this. And they hadn't been able to resolve it for quite a long time, until we brought in Minecraft, and they were able to physically walk around in the model and stand with the avatar and say, hey, there's actually enough space for both the access road and the football field to remain. And it turned out that the architect had actually got it wrong. There was enough space. But no one had really been able to articulate it before. This is what the redesigned space looks like in Minecraft. This is what's going to be built. The football field is up above that row of trees. There's a marketplace kind of beyond the buildings, which you can't really see. There's a new vegetable garden, another sports field, a community hall, playground, and so on. And these changes all came out of workshops where people were able to build in Minecraft. The second example that I wanted to give is from Haiti, a town called Lekai. It's the third largest town of Haiti. And if you can see from this picture, from this map, it actually has a nice grid structure. So it was originally planned. But basically, at the ends of those two, two sides where the grid structure ends, there's been a lot of unplanned growth in the city, with slums being formed and so on. And those areas, particularly here, Sector 4 and Sector 1, are really badly affected by flooding. Whenever there's a storm, the seawater comes into the slum, creates lots of problems with sanitation, because there's open sewers and so on. There's also big problems with lack of public toilets and lack of sanitation. People use the beach as a toilet. So the idea with this is that we will redesign the waterfront to create a flooding barrier, but also create public spaces all along it. And we start in Sector 1, which is this red bit. So we used pictures, once again, to work with Fire UK to produce a Minecraft model, and this is a huge, huge model. You can see on the picture at the top, like the aerial photograph, like the size of the space, and then some detail here. This is what it looks like once you get into the model. Lots of work went into this. And then we, over about a 4 to 5 week period, we had different groups from the community that live in the Sector 1 in the slum there, work on different bits. The first picture in the top left is local children on the first night when we presented the project and introduced it to the community. One of the greatest things that for me was this picture here on the left. It's this guy here, Francois, is a fisherman who can't read and write. He's never used computers before. And he was with a group of 4 others. There was 5 of them. They redesigned the fishing port in Minecraft. It's fantastic to see. And then we also had groups of teenage girls, and this is one of them presenting her model at the end of the project. And she's presenting here to local authority, so the planning department of Lekai. So here are some of the models that have been produced. You can see the walkway that protects the slums from the flooding. The next one, there's also this is a group of guys who built a football field next to the new walkway. Then we have this is the fishing port that was built by that group of fishermen who had never used computers before. So to finish off, what are the benefits of using Minecraft then? I think the main thing for me is that it really changes the power relationship between professionals, so staff from UN Habitat, staff from the urban planning department of the city, architects, and so on, and it gives power back to ordinary people. It's completely different sitting in a room with someone talking at you than being able to turn it around and actually work for some time on solutions that you yourself would like to see, and then presenting it back to the professionals. It's fantastic. Using 3-dimensional models really helps when talking about building projects. When we've introduced 3-dimensional Minecraft models compared to 2-dimensional drawings, it's been like night and day in terms of the engagement of people in these communities. Then there's a really nice element, which is the joint building. It's a multiplayer game. So instead of working one-on-one, people are working in groups, either sitting around one computer in some projects, or working online if we have good enough internet connection on different computers using on the same server. And this kind of multiplayer element adds real dimension to it, because you see how people self-organize into project managers, builders, designers, and so on, and it much more actually mimics the actual real building process when you're building stuff. And finally, it engages young people. Here you can see a group of young people in Nepal who are building in Minecraft. And as I said at the beginning, it's normally really difficult to reach them. But what we've seen as well, which is maybe what we weren't expecting, is that it also makes it easier to reach other hard-to-reach groups. People who live in slums, older people who can't read and write, for example. And we weren't really expecting that. So the benefits so far have been great, and we're looking forward to doing more. That's all from me. Thank you very much.